For the White Rose Philosophical Study Group, I'm Mark Freeman. For more information about the White Rose Philosophical Study Group or the Church of Illumination, please see the links in the description below. Links to all our videos are also included. This is video number 13 in this series where we discuss spiritual and philosophical concepts that can be applied to everyday life or any other worthy endeavor. We will begin this lecture by discussing and attempting to describe some of the unseen worlds around us that we have been speaking of periodically in our previous lectures. The question may be fairly asked as to why anyone should want to be aware or even interested in the worlds of activity that most of us are not generally aware of. That answer is fairly simple. If you wish to be a positive, and here we emphasize the term positive, if you wish to be a positive influence in this world, then you need to be in conscious touch with the higher realms of activity that influence this middle world of activity. It may appear that the constructive things we see happening around us are due to action and reaction on this earthly plane alone. This is a misconception. The action actually begins in the spiritual, and the reaction is seen in the physical. Many successful individuals engage in this process even though they may not be aware of it. Their desire to do good is so strong that it attracts positive spiritual forces which influence and guide them in their efforts. How much more effective would it be if this were accomplished consciously? For a detailed description of the worlds above and permeating this world, we refer you to two books. The first, titled Soul, the Soul World, and the second, titled After Death, both by Dr. Paschal Beverly Randolph. These books are available from the Philosophical Publishing Company, and there is a link for that in the description below. For those who have been aware of these unseen worlds since childhood, this world is one of great difficulty to understand and function in. Why? Because anything not in harmony with God cannot exist in the higher realms, and because of that dissonance, whatever it might be, the being that radiates this disharmony is relegated instantly to this realm of balance between the constructive and destructive, light and shadow, reality and the reflection of reality. For one not of this world, but here to learn and experience, much of human activity makes little sense. The great master makes reference to this when he says, in John 17, verse 14, I have given them your word, and the world has hated them, for they are not of the world any more than I am of the world. This world, as we have said, is a school of instruction, not our permanent home, any more than grade school, middle school, high school, or college were our permanent homes. Children understand and are in closer touch with the higher realms much better than adults. They have yet to be unlearned about the unseen, so they accept it as the reality that it is. To give you an example, we read a passage from Lucy Maud Montgomery's classic novel, Emily of New Moon. Emily, a pre-adolescent young girl, attempts to describe the hidden worlds around her. Emily loved the spruce barrens, away at the further end of the long, sloping pasture. That was a place where magic was made. She came more fully into her fairy birthright there than in any other place. Nobody who saw Emily skipping over the bare field would have envied her. She was little and pale and poorly clad, Sometimes she shivered in her thin jacket, yet a queen might have gladly given a crown for Emily's visions, her dreams of wonder. The brown frosted grasses under her feet were velvet piles. The old mossy gnarled half-dead spruce tree under which she paused for a moment to look up into the sky was a marble column in a palace of the gods. The far dusky hills were the ramparts of a city of wonder, and for companions she had all the fairies of the countryside, for she could believe in them here, the fairies of the white clover and satin catkins, the little green folk of the grass, the elves of the young fir trees, sprites of the wind and wild fern and thistledown. Anything might happen there. Everything might come true. And the barrens were such a splendid place in which to play hide and seek with the Wind Woman. She was so very real there. If you could just spring quickly enough around a little cluster of spruces, only you never could, you would see her as well as feel her and hear her. There she was. That was the sweep of her gray cloak. No, she was laughing up in the very top of the taller trees, and the chase was on again, till, all at once, it seemed as if the Wind Woman were gone, and the evening was bathed in a wonderful silence, and there was a sudden rift in the curled clouds westward, and a lovely pale pinky-gray lake of sky with a new moon in it. Emily stood and looked at it with clasped hands, and her little black head upturned. She must not forget how the tips of the trees on the hill came out like fine black lace across the edge of the pinky-green sky. And then, for one glorious, supreme moment, came the flash. Emily called it that, although she felt that the name didn't exactly describe it. It couldn't be described. It had always seemed to Emily, ever since she could remember, that she was very, very near to a world of wonderful beauty. Between it and herself hung only a thin curtain. She could never draw the curtain aside, but sometimes, just for a moment, a wind fluttered it, and then it was as if she caught a glimpse of the enchanting realm beyond, only a glimpse, and heard a note of unearthly music. This moment came rarely, went swiftly, leaving her breathless with the inexpressible delight of it. She could never recall it, never summon it, never pretend it, but the wonder of it stayed with her for days. It never came twice with the same thing. Tonight, the dark boughs against the far-off sky had given it. It had come with a high, wild note of wind in the night, with a shadow wave over a ripe field, with a gray bird lighting on her windowsill in a storm, with the singing of "Holy, holy, holy" in church, with a glimpse of the kitchen fire when she had come home on a dark autumn night, with the spirit-like blue of ice palms on a twilit pane, with a felicitous new word when she was writing down a description of something. And always, when the flash came to her, Emily felt that life was a wonderful, mysterious thing of persistent beauty. We have another example that tries to describe these unseen worlds, and this comes from a book titled Bastet, A Legend of the Eld, which is currently out of print. Quote, "She knew she was dreaming, but the dream had a tangible quality to it that from long experience had taught her it was one she would remember. She also knew it was real. No, not that this was happening to her physically, but real in that there would be consequences to her decisions. She had the ability to shape events. The people and things she interacted with would be as much affected by her as she was by them. She flew. Was she flying? It felt more just like moving through the air in the direction she was thinking. It was more than vision or imagination. She could feel the wind against her hair and cheeks. Looking down again, she saw that she had moved closer to the hills and valleys. Looking up again, she could see a hem of red light on the distant skirt of the horizon, silhouetting the tall black spires of mountain cathedrals grasping for the sky. A single eastern star, like a small brilliant moon, shone, a halo of light about her, as she beckoned her sister sun to follow and see the wondrous scene below. Rapidly now, the horizon began changing colors, red to orange, orange to green, green to pink, and finally a yellow, golden burst of light and warmth as a sun far younger than our own erupted out of the night into day. At once, 1,000 billion colors sparkled like Solomon's mine times infinity. Everywhere jewels of dew were winking back at their benefactor, who would fill them with her light and transform them from earth-bound prisms into streams of vapor rising to kiss the gentle lips of their goddess. She saw in the center of the plain a round and gently contoured hill atop which perhaps the most beautiful garden of all bloomed in all its seasonal glory. This seemed appropriate. It was like coming home, more like coming home than Thanksgiving, Christmas, or summer break. This was what all those things tried to be, tried to copy, attempted to imitate, and to some small degree succeeded, telling of this eternal place in plain and simple language, verbose ostentation giving the lie to, rather than the truth of, its reality. As she looked down into the garden, she could see many figures moving about, all engaged in specific activities and with great purpose. How odd, she said to herself. I wonder how there can be so many different people in such a small garden. One of them, a young man, looking up as she passed, waved. She waved back, and he, bursting into a grin rivaling the newly risen sun, beckoned to her. With but a thought, she found herself at the northeast gate of the garden. Upon entering, she realized it was far, far larger than it had appeared on the outside. It was as if an entire world existed just inside its walls. Far in the distance, she could see massive evergreens resembling arborvitae that might be several hundred feet in height. Exquisite ivy-covered stone towers dotted the horizon in every direction. Stone walls, hedgerows, forests, fountains, brooks, waterfalls, rivers, ponds, and lakes were scattered about, numbering in the thousands. Staring in wonder of it all, she was suddenly aware of the young man approaching her at a run. Instinctively she leapt toward him, and meeting in a flurry of affectionate anticipation, they threw their arms about each other. She breathed in the wood-smoke scent of his long hair and the faint aroma of newly mown hay. Tears were streaming down her face. It was her lover. Her darling was alive. He was here, in her arms, pressing his lips to hers, holding her as if to never let her go. She kept asking, "How did you find me?" And he would reply, "I didn't. You found me." Now she was walking with him through his garden. She looked, and to her amazement, was surprised to see that the flower beds were just that, beds made of flowers. Nestled peacefully in each were children soundly sleeping, some newly born, others in their early teens. Overlooking each child stood beings of unparalleled beauty. They were robed in a material the nature and color of which seemed almost to be an extension of their luminous bodies rather than garments. From their shoulders on the right and left were gauzy, wispy, glowing white wing-like auras that seemed to shimmer in and out of focus. Some of the beings were apparently male, others female. Some stood with arms outstretched over the sleeping child in their charge, while others had hands clasped as in prayer. Still others had their arms raised to the sky, and here and there some with a single hand extended over a child just inches above its forehead. She silently formed a question. "Where are we?" "We are in the Garden of Souls." She looked at the sky and was astonished to see that rather than the pale blue so familiar in waking life, it was the color of deep, deep indigo, like the earthly sky right after sunset. And just like a clear early evening sky, stars and planets winked here and there in the violet dome. He led her along a tree-lined path of short, cropped grass, so fine and soft that it might have been moss but for the fact that earth and not stone lay beneath it. They turned a corner, and passing through an arch of multicolored roses, came into a courtyard leading to a structure that was beyond her mind's comprehension. A stone tower of magnificent design stood before her. She could see its pinnacle, and yet it seemed to be of infinite height. Its foundation was visible, well rooted in the earth, yet it was floating in the air before her. The stones of its corners sparkled with flecks of crystal. The finely cut blocks of its walls were fitted so masterfully together that they appeared to be one solid piece of rock. Long, thin, ornately decorated windows were placed haphazardly on its multifaceted sides, from each of which poured a warm, golden light. She was conscious of a stairway that wound its way around the tower. Like the other incongruities, it was both outside and inside the granite and marble walls. Looking up, she saw that its height not only outdistanced the billowing clouds above, but seemed to reach the very stars themselves, which floated fairy-like here and there about the apex. Multi-winged forms were flying around and in and out of the structure, all apparently engaged in specific and important missions. However, what captured her attention most were the 7 nearly indescribable beings that stood gravely on a circular dais at the tower's peak. Here, a corner of the tower's 6 sides corresponded to 6 of the people, 3 men and 3 women. On each corner, a smaller version of the tower extended upward to the level of each person's gaze, apparently serving as a sighting point. These individual towers were of a unique design and reminded her of different cultures and architectural styles throughout the world, as did the visage and costume of each individual. A blonde, blue-eyed woman, clad in simple white robes. An ebony-skinned man with brightly colored dress. An oriental girl wrapped in a silk kimono. A man with soft brown eyes and matching skin, a turban wrapped about his head. A woman with long, dark hair, olive skin, and rose-colored lips. and a bronze-skinned man with long black tresses, high cheekbones, and sharp black eyes. Behind the 6 miniature towers, toward the outside of the main structure, grew 6 trees, their species corresponding to the geographical origins of the races. In the very center of the dais, on a slightly raised pedestal, stood a 7th figure of radiant white light. Whether male or female she could not tell, but what filled her with a joy and elation beyond anything she had ever experienced was the sound coming from all of their beautiful and raptured faces. They were singing. The music and the language were like nothing she had ever heard. The harmonies were intricately complex, and yet melded together in unifying form, producing for the ear what the stones of the tower did for the eye. In this dream she could somehow see all sides of the tower at once, and the divine beings engaged in their oral work. As she consciously changed her vantage point, she found herself next to the angel of Indian visage and dress. As he sang, brilliant colors flowed from his lips. Reds, oranges, purples, and bright yellows, they flowed like water out to the miniature tower in front of him, which resembled a high and ornately festooned minaret. The top tip of the tower seemed to catch and concentrate the colors, emitting a yellow ray of light on its opposite side, working like a prism in reverse. Within the ray of light, she could see small, ethereal forms, all exquisitely beautiful in shape and proportion, but translucent, like animated glass figurines. In her mind, she realized these were the angel's thoughts. They were his thoughts, formed within the light itself. Her gaze followed the beam's trajectory. Its destination appeared to be the tree behind the tower. She was uncertain as to what type of tree it might be, as it exhibited various characteristics of subcontinent trees native to India. The umbrella of leaves just above the tower seemed to be reaching out to catch the ray of light. As they did, the glass-like figures escaped into their waiting limbs, like little children being received by their grandparents' arms. Now she was looking at the tower on the other side of the tree. Strangely, she could see the living trunk before her, as thick and substantial as any on earth, but at the same time transparent as glass. The little figures of light were descending through the massive plant, and as she watched them, she suddenly realized that the living trunk, bark, wood, tree, and stem became a part of the stone tower at about mid-height, not planted in the tower, part of the actual stone itself. The stone was alive as the wood, breathing, growing, vibrant. She found herself at the foot of the tower again, her lover's hand in hers. She turned to look at him. "Why am I here?" she asked. "Your father wishes to speak with you. He will meet you between the 7th and 8th floors of the tower, in the Temple of the Dome. Hurry now, or you will miss him." Now, after reading these passages from these 2 different books, it must be pointed out that the visions described from this higher realm are presented from a subjective point of view. The apparent physical objects, animals, buildings, plants, and events are a means of expressing spiritual entities and ideas that are truly beyond physical description. They are living, feelings, and ideas, which may impress themselves upon the imagination, manifesting as visions. Each individual would express them differently, just as tourists at the same destination describe the experience differently. So, how does one come into touch with the higher realms if you are not conscious of them already? As mentioned in previous lectures, the first step is to eliminate the 10 negative human characteristics we enumerated and replace them with the divine, godly characteristics in harmony with divine love. Divine love being God. This requires a daily examination of your thoughts and actions throughout the day, and honestly, without any excuses whatsoever, determine if you expressed any of the negative human characteristics. If you did, then simply say over and over again, I will replace, and here you name the negative characteristic, I will replace it with, and you here name its positive replacement. For a complete list of these characteristics and their replacements, please review videos 9 and 10 in this series. As said before, the links are below. The next step in coming into direct contact with the higher realms involves divesting yourself of earthly distractions. Pick a specific time each day where you shut off all electronics, cell phone, television, radio, computer, even clocks to remind you of what time it is. If you live in a rural area, make this quiet time outdoors if the weather is favorable, preferably during twilight, either right after sunset or just before sunrise. If a quiet place outdoors is unavailable, find a room where you can be alone and uninterrupted for at least 15 minutes to an hour, and where you can open a window for a fresh flow of air. If this isn't possible, a quiet closet is acceptable as long as you can sit comfortably without distractions. If you can be outdoors or in a room with a flow of fresh, clean air, pay close attention to the feel of the breeze, its aroma, and most important, the feelings it creates in your heart. Allow those feelings to create images in your imagination. Give these feelings and ideas all your attention. Do not, under any circumstances, allow yourself to fall into a negative state or to fall asleep. And this must be repeated. Do not, under any circumstances, allow yourself to fall into a negative or hypnotic state or to fall asleep. If any negative or destructive idea or image presents itself, stop the exercise, refocus, replace the negative idea or image with a positive one, and begin the exercise again. If possible, listen closely to the sounds of nature, birds, animals, wind, water. Know that God is in the air, the earth, the animals, and all about you. Have nothing but love in your heart for everyone and everything in creation, no matter what it is. All things, despite appearances, serve a divine and constructive purpose. God turns all things to His or her will. Know that as you breathe in the aromatic air, that you are breathing in the Spirit of God, and that Spirit is becoming a part of you with every breath. Know that every drop of water you drink in the day ahead will be holy water, holding the Spirit of God within. Know that every morsel of food you eat is the body of God and brings you life and sustenance. Know that you are blessed at every moment, regardless of your current circumstances. As soon as you begin to feel the presence of God during this exercise, hold the thought in your mind and imagination that what you desire above all things, is to be of service to God and the light through which God works, creates, and functions. This service can be anything: noble, honorable, useful, and beautiful. In closing, there are a number of questions we have received from some of our listeners that we have yet to address. Therefore, we will cover these fully in our next video. Thank you for spending your time with me, and always remember, life is an incredible journey. Never stop learning.